and then you can ask for what you want. In reality, you can observe daily example of how this rule is applied to business. For example, you can walk into a supermarket and a promoter can offer you to try the new candy or try new food. Yeah. Another example is my personal experience. When I visit a spa that just opening, I went for facial massage, and because I'm the first-time customer, they offer me a free body massage as a whole package. And after that, I end up paying a huge bill for their facial product when they, by the end of the day, when they present me with a list of facial products and recommend me to purchase those to take care of myself at home. And I found it really hard to refuse, given that they offer me the free package, body massage package before. So how we apply this rule of reciprocity in wildlife demand reduction? So it has been said that to amplify the power of reciprocity, we need to ensure what we give is meaningful. So we ask ourselves, who can we have or what can we have? So with that starting point in thinking, Traffic has organized a series of risk management workshops for industrial sectors such as transportation, who has a high risk of transferring the illegal wildlife product. So by offering them the risk management workshop for transportation companies, we can offer them something that is really relevant to their business need and benefit them in strengthening their legal compliance, reduce their risk of law violation, and might also increase their competitive advantage. So in the future, we consider expand those kind of activities to other sectors such as art craft sector, where they sourcing the wildlife product as a materials for art craft product. And we can consider other sectors such as hospitality and tourism, where they accommodate the tourists who are interested in consuming or purchasing wildlife product. The second principle of persuasion is scarcity. So in the rule of scarcity, it states that which is rare or becoming less available is always more appealing. And people seem to be more motivated by the thought of losing something than by the thought of gaining something of equal value. And we normally assume that those products are better because we find that we desire them more, and things are made less available through social demand are rated the most desirable of any. An example is the research result on Mr. L, a consumer archetype of rhino horn consumption. So a consumer survey conducted by Traffic in 2013 showed that Mr. L, that means the user, buyer here, tend to consider purchasing rhino horn in the future due to its rareness and preciousness. So the extension of rhino leads to even a stronger intention to purchase. Therefore, to apply the rule of scarcity in demand reduction of illegal wildlife products, we should not mention the scarcity of those products. It will make people want them more and find any way to possess it. Another example, we're thinking of applying this principle is when we want to engage business community into action against wildlife consumption, we might consider conveying the messages on the possibility of losing business opportunities or competitive advantage in international market, where the Environmental Protection Act is highly valued, rather than just merely calling for their goodwill in environmental protection. And the fourth point, as I mentioned before, we assume things are good because we desire them more. That means the scarce things do not taste, feel, or work any better because of their limited availability. So there's room for the messages focusing on the real solution for customer needs, rather than selling an alternative to customer. For example, people thinking about rhino horn as a solution for treatment of many kind of disease. They believe it's a miracle, especially for cancer. So instead we can promote like a proper treatment adherence. So instead pursuing an like unscientific proven solution such as using rhino horn. Our third principle on influence is the principle of authority. In this rule, it states that in uncertain situations, people normally follow the advice of credible, knowledgeable others. So why do people respond to authority figures? Research explains that because we are grown up surrounded by those bigger, smarter, and more experienced than ourselves, and we are trained from birth that obedience to proper authority is right, and disobedience is wrong. So the mass symbol of authority are often enough to gain instant compliance. For example, titles such as doctor, professor, PhD, or chairman, when you often find the words from those people with title are much more powerful and persuasive than normal people. And clothing such as a hospital uniform, a police uniform, or even in business, a person with well business suit will make a much more good impression. And trappings, like we normally associate certain characters, such as an expensive cars or watches, to be associated with a successful businessman. And you can establish yourself as a credible expert by presenting your knowledge, experience, building up your credential, and acquire relevant trainings to build up your credential. An example of how rule of authority can be applied in public health is my previous project, Alive and Thrive. Alive and Thrive is a project funded by Gates Foundation, which work on promoting optimal infant and young child feeding practice. One of their tasks is to advocate for a policy to promote exclusive breastfeeding. So they use international nutrition experts from WHO, UNICEF, famous doctors or researchers to talk and present scientific evidence about breastfeeding at workshop, at high-level workshop participated by National Assembly delegation, provincial authority, and related ministry, so they can persuade those high-ranking officers and get their support in policy changing. An example in business is how Unilever used authority to increase the credibility of their product. So in the year of 90s, when Unilever just entered Viet Nam market, they get Pasteur Institute. Pasteur Institute is the shorter name of the National Institute of Hygiene and Epidemiology. So they get the Pasteur Institute endorsement for their skincare and hygiene products. So in every TV commercial of the product, it always ends up with the tagline, tested and endorsed by the Pasteur Institute. So how can we apply the principle of authority in wildlife demand reduction? So we can use the health expert to promote for alternatives and bring real fact to clear the myth of treatment using wildlife products. For example, people, as I mentioned before, people believe in using rhino horn or using pangolin scale for lactation. Yeah, so we can bring a highly credentialed doctor to talk about the alternatives. So that's the end of the first three principles. Now I would like to transfer to my colleague, Trinh will talk about the other three principles of persuasion.
Thank you, Ha. Now that Ha has reviewed to you the rule of authority, I would like to propose that you go one more step. So instead of just giving the appearance of authority, why not establish actual authority for yourself? And how do we do that? I am talking about applying the rule of liking, which mentioned the fact that we are, as human beings, often prefer to say yes to those we know and like. Using this advantage of our human traits, we can look into establish credibility through four basic elements, which I have listed here on screen. Expertise means that we like people who have relevant knowledge and capability in a relevant area. For example, if you are selling accounting software, the fact that you are a graduate from Harvard may show that you are very smart, but the fact that you are an experienced and successful accountant is far better. Trustworthiness means that we like people you know. We like people we know. So at workplace, for example, Trustworthiness means that people can count on you to get the job done and get it run right. For example, if you are a sales agent and you never make sales call or meet with potential clients, your boss cannot rely on you to generate new business. The next element is similarity, means that we tend to pay more attention to those who are like us. We always keep asking the question in our mind when we meet someone. For example, do you think like me? Are your ideas like mine? Do you look like me? So the more yes we come up with, the more likely we are to like the person and grant his or her request. For example, taking us back to the computer example, you are selling computers. You will be more effective if you agree with your prospect that software can be hard to learn than if you reveal that you belong to the same political party. Physical attractiveness. So most of us wouldn't want to admit, but we admitted that there is no way around. You and I are more likely to pay attention to attractive people. So the rule of liking are often applied to conversions. What do I mean by that? So let's take a look at the Forbes case study, which centers on a little company called Pet Relocation. So this company helps pet owners from all over the world in moving their pets from country to country. And on the company About Us page, it includes information biographies of all its staff. So and all of this biography emphasize not only on the staff love of dogs, but also humanizing qualities of manager and employees, such as hobbies they enjoy. As a result, this humanizes the entire company and consequently increases its likability, which in turn boosts for the conversion rate of site visitor. So many conservation organizations have already adopted this principle to persuade consumers to stop using wildlife products. For example, I have briefly mentioned to you about the Chi initiative, which were designed to reduce the demand for rhino horn consumer in Vietnam. So traffic, we decided to feature a very well-known Vietnamese businessman. His name is Trinh on this picture in our campaign, as he meets the element of trustworthiness and similarity to establish an effective credibility to the rhino horn user, Mr. L. Viet has engaged attractive and famous actress Maggie Q to be an ambassador for their Stop Using Rhino Horn campaign. Again, one of the TM experts who we have invited to join our workshop, because we feel that the people who are the delegates going to this traditional medicine workshop would like to hear more from the expert rather more from a conservationist like us. So the next principle that I would like to introduce is the principle of consistency. What this principle means is that people are prone to be consistent in their action and belief. Commitment then is the key to trigger the rule of consistency. If you make a person commit to something small, you could use the initial commitment to influence them into doing something more for you. People are driven to be consistent in all areas of life, in our words, in our attitude, opinion, belief, values, and more and more. So once we have made a decision for ourselves and take a stand or perform an action, we are likely to make the future behavior match the past behavior. Few examples can be, so dieters stick to their diet programs they paid for even long after it's clearly that the program doesn't work. Or consumers stick with their brands they have bought, and even if they are more expensive. So let's say Hai and I were asked by Kiel and Gail some time ago when we enjoy listening to some of our speakers on webinar before, and then we have expressed our interest in become a guest speaker, and we say yes, that we enjoy the webinar. So that's why we are here today. Due to the previous commitment, we are here today to presenting this webinar to you, and I really hope that we keep you entertaining until now. So how do we apply this principle? You should seek the active commitment. First, you ask people to verbalize their commitment and ideally to write the commitment down on paper. So building a long-standing commitment by encouraging them to eventually take a public stand or involve others around them. Or assign positive traits and label to people that you know they would wish to live up to before making a request consistent with those traits and labels. And we remind others of the choices that they have made and that you wish to courage or continue. So again, we have applied the tips to our Chi initiative and it's actually work. So most of our Rhino Horn consumer, Mr. L, business owner and business senior leader. So we first invited him to join our workshop and inform him about the problem. And at the end of the workshop, we asked him to provide his opinion and his support to stop the problem. And if he agreed to support, we asked him to write down his personal commitment on a pledge form or pledge board, as you can see on picture 1 and 2. And of course, we asked him to do it in front of other peers. And the next step, and in later interactive event with the same individual, we took a step further by requesting him become our messenger and to influence other individual and peers at his business by delivering our Chi messaging, or to convince his company to start adopt action that can protect wildlife. In picture 3, you can see the beautiful lady from Vietjet Air. She's a marketing manager at Vietjet Air. She joined one of our workshops in the past, and later on, she really showed support by convincing her boss and her company to sponsor one of our World Rhino Day event in 2015. It's called No Wait for Rhino. And we also use a principle to work with Buffalo Tour to launch a small joint communication campaign called I Am Not Souvenir, aiming at discouraging the purchase of wildlife products among the tour groups coming to Vietnam that are using Buffalo Tour services. So bag and sticker with wildlife protection messaging were produced and distributed to tourists. We also conducted workshops to educate the tour guide on wildlife crime. And as a result of the campaign, the rate of international tourists signed up for company tour who are like nature lover and environmental supporter had increased, while the knowledge of the tour guide on wildlife crime had improved. And Buffalo Tour particularly even took a step further after the initial commitment to protect wildlife by adopting a wildlife protection policy in their corporate social responsibility, as you can see on the screen, and they have posted it publicly on their website as well. So the final principles I would like to introduce is the rules of consensus or social proofs. So all of us look to others to help us decide how to act, to guide our behavior, to determine whether something is right or wrong. The more people doing this, the more correct it seems. So we do it every day and every time actually. We do it on the highway. We are turning right when we see car ahead of us turning right. We do it at the office. We use a similar silly jargon and laugh at the same lame jokes. And we do it at parties. We dress like everyone else and have a drink in hand if others do. So why does social proof work like this? Because social proof is what psychologists call a shortcut for making decisions. Our life is too complicated to carefully evaluate every element of every situation. So we learn to take shortcuts to help us make what are usually reasonable and reliable decisions. And when you understand the rule, you can trigger it and will generate yes to all your offers and requests. So in his book, Cialdini cited a study that analyzed hotel guests and their reuse of towel and linens. After trying out different number of sites in the bathroom, you can read here, for example, help us to save the environment, join your fellow people to help and save the environment. So various messaging were delivered to this group of hotel people. So guess which method was the most effective to change the behavior of these people reusing the tower? So this is the message. 75% of people staying in its room reuse that tower. The key was not about the positive peer pressure, but the fact that these people share a very specific trait. They stay in the very same room. And you might not think this site would have such a great effect, but this simple method was responsible for 33% increase in tower reuse. Again, let me take us back to our Chi initiative and explain how we use this principle to influence Mr. L. In terms of Chi Messenger, we were keen to work with local champions, and also part of our effort to ensuring that behavior change is driven from within the community with which we work. So after mapping the nodes, type, and influence pathway around the right-hand consumer, we engaged several leading civil society organizations, such as umbrella business group called Viet Nam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So we help this organization to become a champion and help us to reach out with Mr. L. And then at the end, they have helped us to talk to more than 10,000 business people across more than 50 Vietnamese cities and provinces. And the partnership with the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry enable us to convince other smaller associations in Vietnam to join in the fight against wildlife crime. We successfully engaged other, namely the Vietnamese E-commerce Association, the Vietnam Automobile Transport Association, the Buddhist Association, the Traditional Medicine Association, and many more. And also understand that the right-hand consumer would likely to follow a business leader. We identify influential messengers such as Mr. Nguyen, you see here on picture, a very well-dressed, handsome man. He is the president of Sun House Group, a leading manufacturer of household products in Vietnam. And he himself have adopted a zero-tolerance approach to consumption of rhino horn by embedding the action within the company CSR policy. And Mr. Nguyen himself also even organized an interactive event on his own, attracting nearly 1,000 business people. And at this event, he, showed his commitment to wildlife protection. And later, we use his testimonial in various behavior change promotion publication, distributing again to Mr. L. We make friends with big players, such as the Vietnam Post Telecommunication Group. So they are the first Vietnamese state-owned enterprise to support a nationwide campaign to protect wildlife through corporate social responsibility. And because we are friends with big players, we use this influence to call in other 50 companies across Vietnam in the past 3 years to also adopt wildlife protection in their CSR policy. So in conclusion, Ha and I would like to leave you with this model on influence goals, which Cialdini has mapped out at the end of his book. We both find these models to be useful in how you can choose which principle is most effective for your particular persuasive goals. And we hope that you do too. And of course, for conservation, to make a conversational impact using the principle, some of the most recommended triggers that the author has suggested is using social triggers. So once again, thank you for your attention and for joining our webinar today. We would like to leave our contact details and would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. We will be glad to forward to you the example and the study we have used throughout the presentation today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Trinh and Ha. That was a very stimulating presentation, and I'm sure many of us working in conservation can relate to all the useful examples that you just gave. So thanks very much. I think there will be quite a number of questions from the audience now. So I would like to hand it over to Gail to share the conversation.
That's great. Thanks very much, Kyo. And yeah, really fascinating to have that update, Trinh and Ha. Thank you so much for all your work to prepare the slides, and very informative overview. So I guess I, as ever, have some questions, but I wondered if anybody else in the audience would like to kick us off. Some commentary coming in on the group chat, so thanks so much for that. For those that can't see it, Nishant has fed back. She really enjoyed it. Sorry, it was really enlightening. Consensus is very powerful from a social media perspective. I wondered if you would like to say any more about that. You represent World Animal Protection in India. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think it's thank you, Nissan, for the great comment. And both Ha and I, we agree with the amount of people are engaging to the internet, and more than half of the population in Vietnam at this moment are using smartphone. So we do indeed find that social media is the very influential channel, because people often follow what other posts and do what other posts. However, I would love to also hear more about the work protection animal from India example. And I think when we're using social media, it's best that we are considering the ethics of what to post, which not manipulate, but can still persuade people in the right direction that they want. You want them to change. So maybe more from her.
Thank you, Nisha, for comments. Yeah, it's great to hear you find the consensus powerful in your work like World Animal Protection in India, and I hope that one day maybe you can offer a webinar to talk more details about your work in that. And also, I share the same opinions with Trinh, and actually social media is now becoming very powerful, especially in the wildlife protection area and in environmental protection. Like recently in Vietnam, people start caring about the tree is cutting down, or the massive death of the fish in the sea due to the factory pollution. So actually, it's really helped to the social media channel, and actually the principle of consensus has helped to like expand the message and got the impact and some social influence. Yeah, any more questions or comments from you?
I don't know whether, yeah, I'm not sure, Nishant, whether you're able to unmute, but thanks very much as well from my side for that input. I'm happy to kind of pick up an aspect of that, actually. I too like consensus. I guess the sort of interesting perspective for me is around how do you sort of achieve that through social media when you need to move it forward as well. It's sort of about this likability, the link between consensus and likability. So I think consensus is good in terms of, you know, you can use social media to reach a lot of people with the same opinion, but then in order to really change their choice, perhaps it's more then about bringing in this likability aspect. And I for one really enjoyed the set of kind of expressions, you know, what makes somebody likable. One that was missing for me was very much fun. I think good looking will always be something, you know, we're always attracted to a poster of a handsome or beautiful person that can sort of give us a message and make us think in an inspiring way about a new lifestyle choice. You know, that essentially is at the root of how that kind of function works. But then it's about, you know, if it's good fun, you feel like you're more willing to take on this new inspiring choice. I wondered if Trinh and Ha, you have any thoughts on that and what your own reflections might be around that.
Yeah, sure. I can pick up on the fun characters you mentioned because our key initiative aiming at reducing the demand for rhino horn among the wealthy men, businessmen, had been now finished its second phase. So in the first phase, the set of creative design that we were showing to Mr. L received some very interesting feedback, such as your design looks so serious. All these men in business suits, they look so serious. And every day our work, every day I am very stressful on work already. So looking at these are really making me more serious. No fun at all. So it doesn't capture my attention. So that's why picking up from all of this interesting feedback, we also revamping our design for the second phase, which I show you in the picture on the slide. That Mr. Chen Bao-sen is more, like playing golf outside, more aspect about this man rather than just him at work. So I agree with you that the fun aspect and appealing is also something can capture attention.
That's great, thanks. Just so I wonder if anybody else in the audience would like to ask any questions or has their own experience to share.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ha. Thank you, Trinh. Nishant from India office.
Great, thanks, Nishant.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. So thank you. It was really enlightening. I just wanted to say that we were into animal welfare and doing all these programs until last year. But last year we shifted to campaigns. So now we are really looking forward to influence our audiences to help and support our campaigns. So while going through this presentation, I really like consensus could be used as one of the most powerful tool from this social media perspective, because this is something where we can influence people because they really like to see how and what their peers do. So this is from this presentation perspective actually, since we are into initial stages of developing this campaign through online forums. So yeah.
So it's actually taking me back. If you are on social media, and in past 2 years, in 1 year ago, there was this ice bucket challenge. Not sure if any of you did it, but I did, because you challenge people, and actually not only for fundraising purpose that challenge, but I can really see that people tend to follow what others are really doing, and live up to the commitment they doing it once, they will do it twice. So it's very interesting. But thanks for sharing information from the World Animal Protection.
That's great, thanks. My own experience of that, Ching, I actually walked across hot coals. You can do this, walk across 30 feet of hot coals. I only did it because a friend convinced me it was a good thing, but we did do it for charity. I guess it's it really reinforces the principles actually in a simple fun way. I wonder if there's anything from anybody else in the audience around some of the other principles. I have some thoughts about the reciprocity, but it'd be good to hear from others if there are any questions or reflections. Maybe to kick us off then, I guess for me a key thing that we often overlook in much of our demand reduction approaches anyway is this sense that we need to recognize and reward. This actually for me is part of reciprocity. Sort of people feel that they're giving something up by taking on this new behavior on occasion, and what we give back then becomes this recognition and reward, and it really reinforces people have done the right thing and that they're going down the right path. And it also ties in quite a bit from a theoretical perspective with stages of change model for those that might have used that. Cialdini didn't make those links at the time, I don't think so much, because the models didn't overlap in that manner. But since then, I do think from a practical perspective, it'd be interesting to explore, to what extent should we be making sure we recognise and reward new behaviours as part of our demand reduction approaches, not just continually focusing on pushing people away from a bad choice. I wonder if you have some reflections on that, Trinh and Ha, and if anybody else has any thoughts as well.
Actually, we think that I myself think that there's like no single approach for no single approach. So we need like a combination. When apply the principle, we need to consider like the combination of many principles. For example, it's like maybe reciprocity and also authority and liking, because when we thinking about what should I say, like if we like as we pointed out before, like if we want to create like a consensus, like social proof for something, we want someone like key opinion leader who can influence others, who possess the charm, who have the credibility to speak his opinion, to advocate for his opinion in the public, and also that person maybe have the good appearance, also have credibility, and so it depends on each campaign or each matter. We should consider which principle to use, and also consider the risks of applying each principle. For example, if we use authority, and we have example before when we use like celebrities, so and it may face the risk that the risk of that celebrity in reputation may also affect our activities in wildlife protection in the
I think these to me these principles are speaking to our inner self, our nature, our human nature. And like you said, Gil, maybe Cialdini say that we can apply this principle across sector, across many problems, and actually it can be true. But I think for conservation and to make conservation impact effectively, I think that we also need to understand the trade trend and the story behind the trade trend of where leading to certain conservation goal. For example, who are the rhino horn user? We need to do evidence-based study on that. Who are they listening to? So I think that getting in-depth insight into a certain problem, besides having all this, personal nature, can be added into, can be considered when to use and what to use. So I think it's important that we can also understand the problem more in depth through research and gaining more insight.
Okay, great. Thanks, Trinh. Any thoughts or questions again from the audience? You're all very quiet today. I hope it's because you're
Monday.
learning and reflecting and contemplating.
Starting of the week.
One thing I thought would be useful to just double check with both of you, actually, Trinh and Ha, if you were going to kind of pick one of the principles that you learned about that you felt, this is the key principle in our work, and one you should always bear in mind. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but which do you think it would be and why?
So, as I mentioned before, we think that there's no single hero principle, and we need the combination of all those principles and each and every activity guide. For example, if you want to like when you work with a partner, if you apply the liking or even reciprocity to build the relationship, to expand your network, great. And then after that, you all and also when you talk to them, you also use the you also try to show your authority, like how you understand about the things you talk about, like and how you present the for example, when you want to talk about wildlife protection to them, you need to talk in a manner that you understand it and how it can be well applied, how it's suitable to your partner, so to get them buy-in. And also you need to be consistent on what you do. And for example, when you talk about doing this thing, and you should be consistent in every campaign and every activity, not only in work but also in life, because they will not gonna trust you if you say that I don't consume wildlife. You encourage them to not consume wildlife protection, but then you use it in daily life. And yeah, that's some example of, we need to use a combination. Yes, like just in a like relationship with your partner. And when the also, do you want to add in something?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, we need to look at the problem and decide on to look at your influence goal and decide which principle to use. But for us in Vietnam, dealing with illegal behavior such as consumption of rhino horn or other wildlife products, we think that both legal or illegal behaviors, there are negative and positive about it, and they always have barriers and challenges to change either both legal or illegal behaviors. So so again, I would like to take us back, and I would recommend you to look at the traffic 5-step behavior of change. We need to understand the behavior, the motivation behind the behavior, the audience profile are key to consider, and your key audience, which principle and combination should be applied. For example, when we talk to the Vietnam Transportation and Automobile Association, we cannot use the same method that we use with other, because, for example, this logistic and transportation, they are dealing with transporting illegal wildlife every day. We actually need to be more forceful using authority to talk about the legal framework that are designed to punish whoever transporting illegal wildlife products. But however, if you want to gain a favorable support from business association to help you reach to businessmen, you cannot all the time apply authority. You would need reciprocity, or you would need liking, and consensus. So many examples are around this. So there is no simple, like I say, no hero and no most important to us.
I was so after a hero principle, but okay, I accept your integrated response. One other reflection that struck me was in relation to consensus, the 6th principle, I think. It relates a little bit to sort of this research response that we often get, and I know the Hotel Tao study is actually a really it's quite a well established one. The message testing has been cited many times. I think it's probably one of Cialdini's most famous examples. The other was the difference in the messaging that he used with the wood being taken from a protected forest. For those that haven't heard about that case study, it's a very good one. It's got some interesting insights into when it's an illegal behavior and you're trying to dissuade people, in this case from taking wood from a protected forest. You kind of invert the use of norms, so it's about the use of subjective and injunctive norms, and perhaps as part of the follow-up to this work we can share the link to that case study. But the response that always gets me is this difference between people will often say they want to protect the environment, and in social science research often that's their primary kind of response. Who wouldn't say they want to save the world, right? But actually the messaging that really changes their choices is this kind of what others are doing. So for me, that particular case study around consensus is very useful to be reminded of, and I wondered if you had any further thoughts or reflections about that yourselves.
Yeah, I particularly personally also really like that cover study from Cialdini, and I agree that when we are making personal link and showing that people like you doing the same thing that you might be doing is it's like speaking the same language. We are conservationists. We of course really care about, for example, the welfare or the well-being of species. But if you were talking to a businessman and how to make that link from your conservationist opinions, how to convey that opinion and also encourage the businessman to support you is another story, I think. And I think that's why we are tend to gonna use another businessman to talk to this this target businessman. So yes,
It's like
mm,
apply both liking and consensus. Get liking first and then apply consensus later.
yeah. I think we also have other question on the chat room.
So yeah, thanks very much, Nathando. So her comment was about the scarcity principle. She says that knowing people are more attracted to scarce products, how can we practically avoid mentioning the scarcity of endangered animals? As we've sort of talked about, perhaps in the community broadly, you know, there is this risk that if we overemphasize the rarity of commodities, it will have this adverse impact potentially on consumer groups who seek to acquire products specifically because they're scarce. I mean, we've sort of taken the choice specifically to promote people's chi as a way to demonstrate success, not the use of this rare kind of rhino horn product, I guess, in the chi initiative. What do you have any other kind of comments in relation to that, Ching and Ha? Nishant has come back into the chat box as well with a further example, but any further reflections from yourselves, Ching and Ha, on this issue of scarcity and how we address it?
Yes, actually, scarcity is a challenging one, and yes, the more the product is scarce, the more people desire them, and like in the like the focus group, the last 4 focus group we attend, and we interview the consumer who either purchase or use the wildlife product, and when we ask if the product are no longer exist or if the price will go up like unaffordable, how is their purchase intention, and they still very strongly stated that they still want to purchase it because it's sure the price will go up and there's an investment. And also if it's become more scarce, it means it must have some value, some like a very unique value in that product. So they insist that they still keep buying it. So as in my presentation, we give some thought. We haven't got chance to apply it into any campaign yet, but we think that instead of emphasize on the scarcity of the wildlife product, we can can address into a different angle of what they can lose if they continue to use those products, or not in those not in the environmental angle, but in other kind of business, business reputation, something related to their benefit, something they care for.
Yeah, that's interesting way to think about it. Okay, thanks for that. We're rapidly running out of time. Nishant, thank you so much for your own example that's about donations at the end of March to get tax exemptions and avoid losing something. I'm not sure I'm clear on the relation to this. Would you be able to introduce that a little bit more, just briefly? Nishant, are you able to?
For me, what I gain from this particular principle is to people have that sense of fear during the March end, when they are near that deadline to pay their taxes. So if we are asking them to donate something, so that actually gives them two advantages. So this is like the first advantage is to get that sense of belongingness towards a particular cause where these people donate, and second, they also get certain tax exemptions by paying this money to the NGOs. So I think this is how I try to relate this a particular principle with my example.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds ripe for discussion on another occasion. So it would be great if we can engage you perhaps in the next set of webinars and explore that a little bit further. I think that's been a great discussion. I hope that covered anything the audience would be interested to hear more about, and huge thanks once more from my side, Trinh and Ha, on that excellent set of reflections and really valuable additional insight there towards the end. So back to Kyo now to wrap us up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail. So there seems to be quite a conversation going on toward the end. So I encourage you, if you still have anything you want to discuss, please use the forum in our TOOLKIT website at worldwideweb.changewildlifeconsumers.org. We have a TOOLKIT a forum discussion forum there. You can continue the conversation there if you would like. Well, I think I just want to say thank you very much to Trinh and Ha again for your time and effort in preparing the slides and sharing your insights with us today. And also thank you very much everyone in the audience. We'll be posting the recording of this session on our TOOLKIT website as well. And also I would like to let you know that our next webinar session will take place on the 26th of June. At the same time, so 7 p.m. Bangkok time and I think 1 p.m. UK time, and we'll be joined by Dr. Cameron Brick from the University of Cambridge, who will be speaking about how social situation could play a role in influencing pro-environmental behavior. Otherwise, I thanks very much once more, and I hope you enjoyed the session and see you again next time. Bye bye.
Thanks, Kyo and all. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.